Hello. Yes, it's another Confessions podcast. It is Radio 2. It's another download. It's full of terrible tales. Thank you very much, Dee, for sharing them. It may well be that you get a challenge at the end of this podcast to examine the depths of your soul and then send us a funny story, because that's what everyone else does. This week, we offer you a Shawaddy Shambles, a phony film Fiend, a full-on French Flushing, which is very good, and a zany zoo surprise. No, that doesn't work. A merry mammal-laden motorcade. You decide. We have another Drive Time confession. Thank you very much indeed. Send yours, please, to Simon Mayo at bbc.co.uk. It's probably time we had another series of staff confessions.
No, I don't think it is.
So.
No.
I don't think Deadly
closed the door on that.
I don't think we did. Deadly, have you ever sent one in?
I don't think I have, no. Should I have done by now? Just looking at the producer for inspiration. Waste of time, that would.
Yeah. Well, I just think it is probably about time we had another staff confession. I'm just mentioning it.
Okay.
Anyway, you're very welcome. Sister Rebecca, Brother Matthew, and the Dean is with us. Gavin Ward sends in tonight's...
Full name?
I don't know. It might have been changed. Maybe it hasn't. If it hasn't, then we're in trouble.
Evening, Gav.
Anyway, Gavin Ward, let's say it again. Father Simon and the monastic mob, I seek forgiveness for an act which occurred in 1997 whilst I was a senior chef working in the royal kitchens at Buckingham Palace for Her Majesty the Queen.
Wow. Already good.
Have we got your attention?
By royal appointment.
Or what?
Yeah.
That's it.
What?
That's all I've got, actually. Then
Stop there, quick while you're ahead.
we could do royal confessions, actually.
Yes.
People who work for the Queen.
Or
send us in your...
members of royalty.
At this time, His Royal Highness Prince Edward had taken over the duties from his father as patron to the World Wildlife Fund, and one of his many roles was to host a Christmas party at a swanky London hotel to say thank you to the various companies and individuals who'd helped the charity over the previous 12 months. Now, every 2 years, the open ballot at the palace... I'm not sure we should know any of this. It feels as though it's all secret. Anyway,
fantastic.
The open ballot at the palace allowed a few members of staff to attend this function by way of thanks for our involvement in the various canapé receptions, dinners, etc. associated with the WWF, and by golly, if my name wasn't drawn out of the hat for that year, well, as you can imagine, I was as pleased as punch. Says Gavin Ward. Yes. I said about ordering my DJ from a very well-known gentleman's outfitters, and as the evening approached, became very excited at the thought of the free food, free drink, and the free entertainment. Now, at this point, I should say that in 1997, the musical turns were... we were debating as to who's going to be turning up, because it's a big charity function in 1997. Maybe we get Radiohead, maybe we get the Spice Girls, maybe we get Oasis. But the musical entertainment on offer came courtesy of the cast of Buddy, The 3 Degrees, and Shawaddy.
Sorry.
So it was...
Yes.
Shawaddy were headlining. It's a charity thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Me and my colleagues arrived at the swanky hotel, suitably refreshed from a cola or two, in the canteen bar in the palace. Sadly, no longer there.
In the what?
The canteen bar in the palace. Who knew?
Canteen bar.
Anyway, apparently there's
the revelations. This is fantastic.
Anyway, we strode into the venue looking sharp in our hired garb and a little excited about the forthcoming festivities. Oh dear. I was sat next to a member of a very posh jeweller's family, and we enjoyed a lovely dinner. I'm sure, as the only bit I can remember now was the guinea fowl.
One mouthful and it's gone.
And the red cabbage, which I was to see again much later on in the evening.
Oh!
The acts came onto the stage and did their stuff. A good time was had by all, and as the night progressed, my mates and I ended up at the front of the stage when the headliners, Shawaddy, jived into position. They were looking great, a rockin' and a rollin', and after 3 numbers, the singer looked a bit shocked as I shouted, "Do tiger feet!"
What?
Forgetting, obviously, this was one of Mud's hits.
Yes.
And thus the evening began to nosedive. After much bopping, my friends looked around. I learnt this later. They looked around for me, and one of them said, "Where's Wardy then?" Wardy being the nickname for Gavin Ward.
Is that Gavin Ward?
Yes.
Yes.
"Where's Wardy?" At which point another keen-eyed drunk replied, "He's on stage with the band."
No.
And indeed, there I was. I had kind of talked myself past the security. Now that in itself is, here's a royal function, and he's talked himself past security. and I was now dancing like a lunatic on the stage with Shawaddy. Now, in my early teens, I dabbled with the rockabilly teddy boy culture for a while, and at 13, I was pretty good at the acrobatics that go with this genre of music. However, I was now 33 and not quite so lean and not quite so clever.
Right.
As I launched myself into the air for a rockabilly-style flip, while they were performing You Got What It Takes, aged alcohol took over in mid-flight and I kicked the poor Shawaddy's drummer's cymbals over.
Oh, no!
The lead singer, one Dave Bartram, tried to laugh it off and said, I bet you couldn't do that again if you tried. So I did try again, and I did kick the drums over again. At which point I was gently persuaded off stage.
Oh.
To no applause, I might add, which was a shame as I was all ready to give it my all to Blue Moon, which they sang next. Felt it may be diplomatic to leave in a cab at this point, back to my room at the Palace, where I awoke the following afternoon with a vague recollection of guinea fowl, red cabbage and crashing cymbals. So, Father Simon and the Collector, I asked forgiveness not from the security guards at the front-hand side of the stage, who shouldn't really have let me on in the first place,
yes,
but to the headliners, Shawaddy, for kicking their drums over twice, which has probably never happened before. I also seek forgiveness from the other 699 guests at this posh frock and black tie do, and finally to His Royal Highness Prince Edward for the embarrassment caused him. I'm guessing when people around him at the time of the incident asked, "Who's that idiot?" he replied, "Well, actually, he's one of ours." Gavin Ward sent in tonight's confession, and he seeks the forgiveness of our motley assembled collective. Let's see, well, from the royal kitchens at Buckingham Palace, by royal appointment, let's see what we make of this, Sister Rebecca.
Well, I guess wherever they work, chefs, they're always a rowdy bunch, aren't they? Whether it's the Royal Palace or, a restaurant elsewhere. So I'm kind of not surprised that he ended up on the stage. I think the lead singer of Shawaddy showed a great sense of humour by saying, I bet you can't do that again. But then when he did it again, I think that Gavin had gone too far. So actually...
to kick over the drums once is one thing, but
as
to kick them over twice as part of a backflip...
Yeah, and being a bit of a hooligan at a royal event. So I'm not going to forgive.
Sir Lincoln on a text says, of course, there should be Shawaddy.
Oh,
Gavin Ward. It's not as Wardy.
Good.
Come on, get with the spirit. Here's the Dean now.
I'm going to forgive, yeah. Totally forgiven.
Totally?
Yeah, he was allowed on, which is a dangerous thing to do anyway. Your man Dave Bartram invited him to do it again. What an idiot. What sort of idiot is he? Prince Edward probably wasn't there anyway. It's far too late for him. He'd have been in bed, tucked up in bed by that point. Okay. And it should have been expected. So, yeah, I totally forgive. And thank you for all the bit of an insight there into the royal goings-on.
It is.
Canteen Bar?
Yes. Royal Confessions. Welcome, Teddy Boy Confessions, Shawaddy Confessions. What have you got there, Matt?
Who are we to condemn someone for getting up on stage? And I seem to remember being a little refreshed in a Spanish nightclub and ending up getting on top of a podium with some dancers and staying up there for quite a while because the club security couldn't get me down.
Were you a podium dancer?
I was. I'm pretty good at it. I was.
Anyone we knew? Was this
no.
Pictures of this?
So who are we to condemn that? We
everyone
can't.
who hasn't.
No. Well, absolutely, none of us can condemn it. So definitely forgive it.
Tonight's confession comes from Edith Spigel. Edith, thank you very much indeed for tonight's confession. Dear Father Simon and the current inhabitants of Clergy Corner, mine is a rather recent confession, the guilt of which has been eating away at me every time Simon demands more dirty secrets from his sinful listenership, which, it would appear, extends beyond Radio 2. I'm sure Radio 4 is awash with debauchery, and Radio 1 chock full of youthful miscreants, and as for Radio 3, well, never trust a man with a cravat. I kind of agree with that. I'm afraid I'm not too sure about the other networks, says Edith. I'm sure they would all benefit from your offer of absolution. You must understand, I'm also a long-term listener of the BBC's flagship film show on BBC Radio 5 Live, and have often passed the film tidbits on and recommendations gleaned from the show onto my family. After a couple of spot-on recommendations for films that my family really enjoyed, the show, and by extension me, were promoted to the position of film guru within our household. As such, when the time came for my sister's birthday earlier this year, I was duly sought for advice as to what we should watch at the cinema as part of her birthday celebrations. I was a little behind listening to the show, but I wasn't going to let this put me off. Surely, I was quite a film buff by myself now. I didn't need some radio programme telling me what to think. Thank you very much. I'll make up my own mind. I am a woman with a brain. Thank you very much. And if I say a movie is good, then my opinion is just as valid as anyone else. Thank you very much again. I can spot a good actor. I can recognise a good score and I can tell if he's really a ghost. So, nicely done. So, I had been eyeing a film which will remain nameless for the moment, for reasons soon to become apparent. I thought it might be quite good. So it was duly recommended and we booked a viewing on my sister's birthday. We were about 10 minutes into the film when my sister turned to my mother and questioned whether we were actually in the right film. Blimey, Charlie, it was awful, and it did not get any better. Suffice to say, it was one of the most boring, tiresome and predictable films I have ever watched. Because my dad is quite tight, we remained in the cinema and watched until the bitter watched until the bitter end. We spent most of our expensive meal afterwards bemoaning the film and the death of narrative cinema, and my sister's birthday was duly ruined. Now, here it is. I have to ask forgiveness for two things. Firstly, for taking my family to see a horrendous film, spoiling my sister's birthday treat and wasting my dad's money. But secondly, and surely most importantly, I must ask forgiveness from Mr. Simon Mayo and Dr. Mark Kermode, the esteemed hosts of Five Lives Film Review Show. You see, when my mother questioned me on why I had taken them to see such an awful film, I placed the blame squarely at your door. Mark and Simon said it was great. In fact, Mark raved about it. He said it was fantastic and maybe his favourite film of the year. Now, this was definitely not true. Indeed, you actually castigated the film. Simon, for your information, the film was Ride Along, starring Kevin Hart and Ice Cube, which I'm sure highlights the seriousness of my transgression. Mark, for those who haven't seen it, just remind us.
It's a sort of two guys in a car together. So Kevin Hart, he wants to be a cop. Ice Cube is a cop, but he doesn't want Kevin Hart to be a cop. Kevin Hart wants to marry Ice Cube's brother, and they go together in a car. And it's one of those films that reminds you of the genius of Eddie Murphy. It makes you look at a film like 48 Hours and think, blimey, that is Mary Poppins, that is Citizen Kane. I think we reviewed it at the time as an action comedy which has neither action nor comedy.
So you slagged it off?
It was one of the worst films of the year, and the most depressing thing about it was it made a whole bunch of money and demonstrated that just because people pay to see movies doesn't mean they enjoyed them, as I think is demonstrated by The Confession. It was rubbish.
So at no stage did you say it was actually really quite good and you recommended it for people to go and see for a birthday?
No. In fact, I think I restrained myself from using, rude language when reviewing it, but it was was that kind of... No, it was that level of bad.
Edith Spiegel concludes, not surprisingly, after my recommendation and we saw the movie, your names have been mud in our house.
Yeah.
And I now have to listen to your shows in secret, as my mother no longer approves of me, quote, filling my head with all that rubbish. Therefore, I must ask for forgiveness for besmirching your good names and committing what I know Mark would seem as a sacrilegious act of misrepresentation. Yours, thoroughly ashamed of herself, Edith Spiegel.
And rightly so.
And rightly so. By the way, your daughter's just texted me. I didn't even know she had my text.
Saying,
I've just cried hearing Mary Poppins, Let's Go Fly a Kite. Mine and my dad's film always.
There we go. Well,
there
we go. That is a well-raised child.
Okay,
anyway.
Edith Spiegel would like the forgiveness, first of all, of Sister Rebecca.
I just wonder why she went to this film. I'm a bit confused because, first of all, she blamed you two, but why did she go in the first place if you said it was the worst film of the year? So it doesn't make any sense.
She thought it might be quite good and she felt independent.
She wanted to be independent, so she wanted to show that she didn't have to listen to you lot. Well, I think, obviously, if she listened to your show and loves it so much, then she should just listen to your advice. So I think, I'm not going to forgive because she went contrary to your advice, so she deserves what she got.
What do you think, Mark?
I think that, obviously, making up your own mind is absolutely the case. We do the movie show, other opinions are
unless
available.
Unless it's Mary Poppins.
Yeah, exactly. Unless it's Mary Poppins, some things are non-negotiable, right? So other opinions are available. They happen to be wrong, but that's the case. However, as a movie show, the only thing that we have, as our currency is the integrity of what we do. And the idea that somebody would say that you had said anything positive at all about something as horrible as Ride Along is, I'm afraid, utterly unforgivable. It's on a par of unforgivability with not having watched Mary Poppins and deciding in advance that you didn't want to see it. Not forgiven.
Not forgiven. Brother Matthew.
Yeah, steer this away from Rebecca and the Mary Poppins. What I'd say as well is that Ice Cube gave an interview, it was a couple of weeks ago, in which he was asked, which is your favourite or funniest movie of all time? And of all the movies he could have chosen of all time, he said, well, one of my own, actually, Ride Along. That is the funniest movie of all time. Well done.
That's a funnier joke than anything that's in Ride Along.
Ride Along, yes. I heard that original review. It was very funny. I'm going to obviously forgive.
We welcome into the collective, making a debut, it's a second debut of the week, Justin Green, our news host.
Hello.
How long's your shift been today, is it?
Oh, it's only been a shorty today.
Just a short
I popped in, pretended to be Alan Dedicoat for a few hours, and thought I'd come in here because you didn't lock the studio door.
Well, the Reverend Green. So the Reverend Green joins us. By the way, you have an interesting suggestion for alternatives. Our homework question is about alternatives to boyfriend, girlfriend, and all that kind of stuff. What's your suggestion?
My suggestion is fella, chap, or beau. All alternatives to
No
boyfriend.
one's going to say, "Here's my beau."
Oh, it's lovely.
What century are you in?
Bring back the 20s.
Anyway, it's Simon Mayo at bbc.co.uk for that. So tonight's confession, here we go. It's Ken in Hull. Thank you, Ken, for tonight's tale. Dear Father Simon and the Holy, Unholy Synod, I'm writing for forgiveness for the unfortunate event which took place 2 years ago during a camping trip to the beautiful medieval Breton town of... I should have checked this beforehand.
Okay.
Concenau in France. What do you think?
That doesn't sound
Doesn't
right
sound
at all.
right, does it?
No.
Concarnau.
Consonu?
Concernant.
Well, you just say it. Just brazen your way through it.
Oh, shrug.
Concarnau.
Yeah, yes.
During a camping trip to a beautiful medieval Breton town in France, walking through the picturesque streets, browsing the various gift shops with my family, I realised that the bottle of Normandy cider consumed over lunch had now been processed, and telling my wife I'd catch them up, went in search of La Toilette. He's bilingual, this guy. I eventually found the town's one and only unisex facility. Being the only person in the queue, waited patiently until a French woman opened the cubicle door. Being the gentleman I am, I held the door open while she exited, and then proceeded straight into the WC myself. Before I could get the door closed, the aforementioned lady started gesticulating and shouting, as the French do, in rapid French, looking at me a little bit concerned. Considering I failed GCSE French due to reasons that will become clear later, my optimistic internal translation of her jabbering was, "Sir, I'm afraid there is no loo roll left in there. You might want to find some before proceeding with your ablutions." Well, in the best tradition of Englishmen abroad, I replied slowly and loudly, "Thank you, I only need a wee, I'll be fine." And I shut the door. After the door banged shut and electronically locked itself,
Oh, no.
the lights went out and my nightmare began. No one heard my screams as, in the pitch dark, imagine this, multiple jets of icy water mixed with detergent sprayed me and the entire room from every angle for about 2 minutes. On and on and on it went as it followed its intense, super clean routine. This was then followed by an intense tornado of wind, which failed to dry me but blew my hair vertical as it dried the floor, the walls, the ceiling, before finally the light came back on and the door's safety lock disengaged. And I was able to escape, confused, disorientated, soaked to the skin, but with incredibly clean legs
Did he
and
manage
feet.
to do what he'd gone in there for?
I don't think he got that far.
Okay.
See, Father Simon, it seems you live and learn, because it transpires that what the woman had actually said was words to the effect of, "You can't go in there, you stupid Englishman. It hasn't done its self-cleaning wash cycle yet." So here's where I need forgiveness then. From the hordes of gawping tourists I squelched past as I left a wet trail of footprints from the public convenience through the town in search of my wife and children. I don't require absolution from the madame whose warning I so rudely dismissed. She really should have attempted some English, don't you think? Not even... What? Not even do I owe an apology to my family, whose unsympathetic laughter on seeing my bedraggled, traumatised and sopping wet form outweighed any embarrassment I caused them. Now, my guilt is with my high school French teacher, whose lessons, I confess, did little to inspire me, but which were, it now appears, of far greater value than I gave them credit for. Had I known that Miss Jones only had my best intentions and personal safety at heart, I would have paid far greater attention to my verb tenses and much less time helping a friend to conceal a dead fish behind her classroom radiator. I might as well kill two birds with one stone and own up to that now. Please show leniency. I was but an impressionable teenager with little thought to the vital role the French language and its understanding might have in my future. I'm truly sorry of Kenny. I didn't know that toilets did that, because I thought pretty much in France it was had to have a fairly basic attitude to la toilette. Did you not think? Like you just stand in the... Well, they have
sweeping
that...
generalisation about our Gallic cousins.
Yes, a sweeping generalisation. Anyone who's been camping in a French campsite will, I think, attest to the fact that... See that hole in the ground? That'll do nicely.
In the 1970s, perhaps.
Yeah, the rest of the country is a little bit more
I think you'll find
technically able.
If you're camping
in
and
France.
not in your 5-star hotel like you normally have... You'll find those holes are still existing. Anyway, it's Ken, and he had a horrific experience. Imagine that being shut while the toilet is doing its whole cleaning routine for 2 minutes in the dark. Sister Rebecca.
I always wondered what happened when those toilets went. Yeah, exactly. Now we know. I think it was his fault for being so superior with the kind French lady who tried to help him, and then to say she should have tried to speak in English. Sorry, which country were they in? They were in France. Maybe she didn't speak English. I mean, if the tables were turned,
speaks English.
do you think he would have tried to speak French to somebody if they were caught in the loo and they were French? I doubt it, because he couldn't speak French. Anyway, for that reason, I'm not going to forgive.
Dominique in the New Forest say it's Concano. That's how you say it.
Thank you.
Concano, probably. Reverend Green.
Well, I would say pretty much most people have got ropey language skills unless they've got a particular flair for it. So, yeah, I think you can be forgiven for not having great language skills and not understanding the woman who was wildly gesticulating at him. Why would you think it was about a self-cleaning toilet? For that, definitely forgiven. However, the side story about a dead fish in the language class...
Yes, that's right.
That needs more explaining.
Okay.
And I think that bit... Not forgiven.
Well,
what did you do to that poor fish?
That's volume... Well, I don't think he killed the fish. He just hid the dead fish behind the classroom radiator. Anyway, Brother Matt, what are you saying?
Why are we trying to overcomplicate toilets? Why can't we just leave toilets as they are? We don't need to have self-cleaning ones. And why do we on trains have to have these doors that you have to lock? Press a button, then it's locked, and then it's not locked, and you have to press another button to unlock it. We can land a robot on a comet, but we can't sort out our toilets. So for that, I am going to forgive.
Here comes Thursday's confession. The novice is in, and two reverends, and here we go with a very interesting story, I think, from Terry. Terry, thank you very much indeed for tonight's tale. Father Simon, I was a penniless, inexperienced lad, and as my gap year before university was earning some money working as a temporary keeper at a local zoo. In 2014, of course, this is a skilled profession that requires training and qualifications. But in those distant days, anyone who could handle a shovel would be offered the job.
Different days.
Very, very different days. You wait. So I spent almost a year working with bears, wolves and lions. Towards the end of my time, it got your interest? Towards the end of my time there, I had arranged a date with another gap year student keeper. We were going to see The Sting at the local cinema, which is a movie for younger listeners, and not a reference to the police in any way. But when I arrived at the zoo that morning, the head keeper pounced on me and said, "Here, you can drive. We've got some animals that need to be moved to Yorkshire. You're the only person available. Off you go." Now, like all zoos, this one transported animals in a plain van. There were no telltale logos on the vehicle that indicated what was inside. It's never a good idea to advertise the fact that exotic animals are being moved, as there are some very strange people around. With a little help, I loaded the van with 4 parrots, 8 flamingos, a giant tortoise called Andronicus, and a very lively 1-year-old leopard. Ooh. This cat was a personal friend, as I'd helped hand-rear him. He was as friendly and as docile as a leopard can be, which is to say that most of the time he behaved well, but could never be fully trusted. The birds were no trouble. They were popped into a safe travelling cage, and when a cloth was draped over them, they just went to sleep. I know some people like that. Andronicus spent most of his life sleeping, so he'd be no problem. But the big cat was different. Young leopards are a lot like kittens. They're restless, enjoy exploring. To keep him quiet during the trip, the zoo vet gave the leopard a very slight sedative. Not to knock him out, but to make him doze gently for the 3-hour journey. Now, you know what it's like when you're transporting leopards a long way in a van. I think we all do. There are endless traffic problems. Roadworks and diversions plagued the whole trip. 3 hours came and went. We passed the 4-hour mark, and still there was another 30 miles to go. Suddenly, from behind came a rhythmic scrape, scrape, scrape as the leopard investigated the back of the van. The sedative had worn off. The cat was awake. His travelling cage was made of strong wood with a wire mesh front. For obvious reasons, this was facing away from the other animals, and the cage was tucked away at the back of the van, right next to the doors. The leopard wasn't yet fully grown and could just about get a paw through the wire, and he wanted to get out, and he wanted to play. Soon the noise changed to a chalk-on blackboard screech as his 4 curved razor-sharp claws came out and started to rake the steel. Good name for a band, by the way. He'd been in there long enough and was getting bored. A fidgety leopard really needs to be treated very carefully, even a young one. I wasn't too worried as my destination was only 10 miles away and soon he'd have a new big compound to explore. I was more worried about my date and was in real danger of being late and missing it. The animal still had to be unloaded and it was a long drive back. To make it in time, I needed to speed up a little. And for the first time in the whole trip, there was an open, uncluttered road. I may have been a touch over-enthusiastic with the accelerator pedal because within minutes a flashing blue light appeared behind me. I pulled in and the policeman wandered over to my door. He seemed world-weary and really fed up with life. He'd probably done this just a few too many times. "Don't you like our road signs then?" he asked. I had no idea what he meant. I thought he was stopping me for doing something wrong, not to discuss aesthetics. "You were doing 42 miles an hour and that there," he points to a large red and black 30 sign, "says you can do no more than 30 miles an hour. "Oh, yes, I'm sorry," I say. "Do you have your driving licence with you?" I didn't. It was at home. "Is this your van, sir?" "No." "I see. Can you please tell me what you've got inside?" 4 parrots, 8 flamingos, a giant tortoise and a leopard. By now, he'd had enough. "OK, you, out of the van and open the doors." Find out what happened next. So previously on Terry's Confession, we concluded for part 1 with the policeman, the Yorkshire policeman, saying, "So what have you got in your van?" And him saying, 4 parrots, 8 flamingos, a giant tortoise and a leopard. And the policeman says, "OK, you, out of the van," and open the door. As I climbed out, the policeman called on his radio, obviously asking some unseen person to check on the vehicle's registration. He arrived just at the moment when the doors were opening. Big cats are renowned for their reflexes. They possess a speed that is incomprehensible to a human. That's why they are so very good at hunting, and their reputation is fully justified. The right-hand door opened. The policeman stepped forward just as a gold and black foot flashed forward with all claws out. It missed the policeman by a hair's breadth. To give him his due, he remained upright. "What the blazes?" he said in a voice 3 octaves higher than it had been a couple of minutes before. "It's okay," I said. "He's not trying to hurt you. He's just being friendly." The cat really wasn't attacking. He'd just been inside for too long. Without another word, the policeman turned and picked up his radio. He had a long chat with someone. He returned, reading from his notebook. "Seems this van is registered to a zoo," he said with a stare that told me nothing. "Yes, that's right. I'm a zookeeper. We're moving some animals as part of a breeding programme." "Is that tiger deadly?" he asked. Well, my luck had been pushed too far. I had no intention of correcting his identification abilities and sidestepped his zoological mistake. "No," I said, "he's daft as a brush. Would you like to say hello?" I scratched his neck just below the ear. This is the cat, not the policeman. And the cat pushed against my hand, as he always did with everyone. "Would you like a go?" I say to the policeman. "Is it safe?" he says. "Well, don't put your whole hand in. Just scratching with your fingertips," I explained. The leopard dropped onto its knees and rolled with pleasure as the policeman rubbed his neck. The world-weary copper had disappeared, and in his place stood a big kid playing with an unusually large cat. I really couldn't help liking the man. "Well," he said, "we better make sure the tiger gets home safe. Would you like a police escort?" Well, now this could save my entire evening. So with sirens blazing and full blue lights flashing, the 4 parrots, 8 flamingos, giant tortoise and a very lively 1-year-old leopard arrived at their new home in time to eat and settle down for the night. Luckily, there were no animals to collect. The van was going back empty, so the turnaround time would be fast. The animals were carefully unloaded and fed. My job was done. But I still had to get all the way back in time for the film, and there wasn't a minute to spare. For the second time that day, my right foot was perhaps a little heavy on the pedal, and again, unbelievably, in my rearview mirror again I saw the menacing blue light of a panda car. This time, no possible reprieve. I immediately recognised the same officer who now appears at my door. "I thought it might be you again," he said. "What have you got in the back this time?" I was by now nearly 2 hours later than planned and could only just make it to my date if I rushed. Suddenly, a wonderful time-saving opportunity materialised right in front of me. Monkeys. 6 baby monkeys. They have to get back quickly so they can have some milk. Young monkeys have to be fed every 4 hours. And snakes. Spitting cobras, they're amazing things, you know. They don't even have to bite you, and when they're angry, they spit venom right in your eyes. They can hit a target 6 feet away. Full dose will make you blind. It's very painful. That should do the trick, I thought. The kindly policeman took a step backwards. Yes, well, what time do the monkeys need their tea? He said. 8 o'clock at the latest. This traffic is terrible. I should be off, I'm saying. Tell you what, I'll give you a hand, says the policeman. Only to the motorway, mind, but we've got to make sure those monkeys and snakes are okay. Well, the motorway was nearly 20 miles away, and a police escort over that distance would solve all my problems. Jump in and follow me, says the monkey-loving policeman. He turns on his siren and flashing lights and goes herring off well over the speed limit. Traffic ahead of us parted as they saw an urgent high-speed emergency, giving escort and an undisputed right-of-way to a completely empty van. I didn't know much about the police force, but even I could see that if his colleagues at the station discovered that this man had given a full siren escort to a troop of imaginary monkeys and snakes, his life wouldn't be worth living. But we made the 18-mile journey in a quarter of an hour. This was many years ago, Father Simon, and today I'm a professional zoologist with many books to my name and quite a few TV programmes. Retrospectively, there are some things I should have done differently, so belatedly, I offer my apologies and ask for forgiveness. Not from the leopard, who had a very good meal that night, lived a long life and went on to father 18 cubs. Check out the detail in this. I don't even ask apologies and forgiveness from the policeman who probably became a local celebrity. I'd like to apologise to my girlfriend for being 20 minutes late to see The Sting. It's quite a complicated film and I never quite understood it, but it was not my fault. Honest. Says Terry. We're changing his name, clearly, but anyway, how about that? How about an extraordinary wildlife confession involving a leopard? Didn't think we'd get one of those. What do you think, Sister Rebecca?
That's a fantastic story, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a bit Life of Pi, maybe crossed with
Exactly
Noah's Ark.
right.
Yeah,
Exactly right.
I thought that, he showed loads of imagination, Terry did, by quick thinking by making up that story about the monkeys. And, the policeman must have been delighted to be escorting him and helping out the monkeys, as he thought, and the snakes. So I think the fact that he was 20 minutes late for his girlfriend, she should be grateful to have him. He's a wonderful guy, so forgiven.
Novice Nigel.
Well, there you go. So really, we know it was David Attenborough, and fantastic. So and loving and caring Yorkshire Constabulary, fantastic. I was once helped by a policeman. I was going one way down a one-way street, the wrong way, and basically I said to them, "I'm only going one way," and they laughed, and then they escorted me correctly there. So
what a showbiz anecdote that is.
I know. You won't believe who was driving the car, the police car. No, I can't remember either. But they were very, very kind in Cirencester. Thank you. Moving on.
Yeah. So do you forgive?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah. Brother Matthew.
And it is Life of Pi, because we're having a pie, even better.
Oh, well done. I'm going to say, obviously, you made this policeman's day. You got to cuddle a leopard, and you can't say that every day. So, yes, definitely forgive. I mean, you took a gamble with the monkeys, but, paid off, didn't it?
Right.
Well done.
They were this week's confessions. Thank you very much, Dee, for sending those in. Did that spark something in your head? I think so. Send me your tale. confessions@bbc.co.uk. More in a week. And the Weekly Mayo available to download should you be missing me in between.